Hello folks, Skip Wilson here. I'm going to do a little video on a failure to feed problem that I've discovered with the Kel-tec SU-16. Now, in other videos, this little gun has had pretty good reviews and has been pretty reliable. However, I have found that on certain types of ammunition, we do have a feed problem. Basically, this gun, I've been using the American Eagle mil-spec M855 ammunition, and I've had no problems whatsoever. Maybe a stovepipe, but I put 400 or 500 rounds through the gun, breaking it in, and had zero problems. Now, one of the selling points of the SU-16 is it uses the AR style mag, of which I have a bunch of, and I want to continue to use them. Also, I have some 10-round metal mags, which are aftermarket, but basically identical to the GI mags. Now, Kel-tec, when their gun comes in the package, comes with two little plastic magazines, which are a little bit hard to get in and out. They don't drop when you push the button like the metal mags do. So if you're using this for combat and you're surrounded and badly outnumbered and need to change mags quickly, this is probably not the magazine you're going to want to choose. I immediately put them away and went to my 30-round or 10-round metal magazines when I first started shooting the weapon. As I said, my first choice was the NATO M855 ammo, which fed flawlessly, the green tips. The other ammo I went to was also a NATO round, the M193, which is almost identical. Also, no problems with feed, very reliable. The next thing I used was the Remington 223s. Now, here's where I started to develop a problem. About half of the time, I'd get a jam with this. It would not chamber properly. And of course, you're out at the range, you're not familiar with your weapon yet, and didn't know what the problem was. So I switched over to what is supposed to be a pretty premium ammunition, the Hornady Super Performance Match, I should say. This, I had a 100% failure to feed. Not one single round would chamber. I had a jam up so bad that I had to bring the gun home and work on it in the shop to get it unjammed. So this is the point that I decided to do a little research and get into the nature of the problem, either with the ammunition or the gun, and I had to suspect the ammunition was one of the problems, because it fed the NATO ammo just fine, but the civilian ammo not so well. So the rest of this video was going to be dealing with what I found, and it has to do with the construction of the magazine and the feed ramp inside the receiver. Now, Kel-tec calls this a barrel extension. I will refer to it as a breech lock, because that's what happens. The bolt goes forward, it turns, it locks against the teeth inside the breech and keeps the ammunition from blowing out the back of the weapon. Next, I'd like to bring your attention to the difference in the magazines. The bottom is a Vietnam era USGI magazine, and above it is a current civilian magazine, a 10-rounder, which is almost identical, and above that is the plastic magazine that comes with the Kel-tec SU-16. And notice on the right side of this picture, where the tip of the bullet would be, there's a little protrusion molded into the magazine that the other magazines do not have. I found this to be significant, and we'll explain this more in detail as I get on with the rest of the review. So let's take a look at what happens when a bullet feeds from the magazine into the chamber, one step at a time. First, we're looking at an empty chamber here. And next, we're going to be looking at the first phase, the bullet sitting in the magazine at rest. As it comes forward, notice how the nose of the bullet is feeding onto the little ramp and being pushed up. Also notice how the back of the bullet is being pushed down against the spring pressure of the magazine. There's quite a bit of load there for that spring to overcome. But on good ammunition and a good spring, it does manage to push it up in there. The problem is it is headed right for that little channel in the breech lock. That little channel, if you'll notice, has some rather sharp edges on it. The bullet continues forward, and depending on the shape of that bullet, it contacts the sharp edges and forms two little divots in the side of the bullet, which can stop it dead in its tracks and actually impale itself in that channel to the extent that you need to get in there with a screwdriver, lift it up out of the channel, and either continue to push it forward or try to push it back into the magazine, where you can release the magazine and get it out of the weapon. Now that's sometimes a problem out in the field. The other problem is that when you examine it after a jam like this, you'll notice these little divots in the side of the bullet tip. Now they're rather deep and have a little protrusion sticking out. Now this, I don't know if that's going to actually affect the accuracy of the bullet. It will affect the airflow. So it would be better if they weren't there. Now if we take a look at a bullet that fed properly without a jam, also notice that those edges create a couple of little scratches from the tip to the beginning of the case. I doubt that that's going to have much of an effect on a bullet spinning 250,000 RPM, but hopefully your weapon gets worn in a little bit, those edges will go away and not do quite so much damage to the bullet. Okay, so what's the solution here? Okay, actually there's two of them. The first one is, as I said, when the weapon wears in, goes through its wear-in period, it'll start feeding better. Or you can get in there and you can relieve that sharp corner a little bit where the line is and accelerate this process somewhat. I don't know if Kel-tec recommends that or if they would be willing to look at some changes in their production process to mitigate that problem. I will be speaking to them about it when I finish this video so that they can refer to it. But the other thing is that they apparently know about it because they have designed a magazine which will feed your ammunition properly and doesn't seem to mind these channels being there. Now, as mentioned in the introduction, there is a difference in the magazines that I pointed out, mainly being a little protrusion on the side of the plastic magazine supplied by Kel-tec. You'll notice in this frame, the GI mag to the left is feeding the bullet to the left, which directs it directly into the channel that we spoke of earlier. However, the Kel-tec magazine on the right tends to lift the bullet up, pushes it over directly into the center of one of those, not the channel, but the vertical protrusion, and it rides up over the top as depicted in this next image. This image is a little hard to see, but it's actually riding on top of the tooth on the breech lock rather than down between the channel there to get caught on. So after looking at this, I took the gun back out to the range, put every kind of ammunition I could find through it using the Kel-tec magazine, and had absolutely no problem feeding the Hornady, American Eagle, the Remington, and some stuff that I borrowed from a friend. So, hope that's helpful, and thanks for watching. Hi folks, I thought I would append this to the end of this video because it has nothing to do with the reliability of the weapon, but it has to do with the reason that I bought it. Now, actually it was inspired by a gun salesman who yesterday while I was showing this gun to a friend, made the comment that why would we be interested in this little gun when for a few bucks more you can buy an AR-15, which in his estimation was a real gun. Now, as it turns out, he knew absolutely nothing about the Kel-tec SU-16. My reply to that is, if I wanted an AR, I would buy an AR. The reason I got this gun is because it does what it does. First off, it's lightweight. Secondly, it folds up and literally can go in your backpack. Now, I bought it for a survival weapon. I'm a pilot. I fly in the backcountries of the Sierra Nevadas. And there's some places up there that if you go down, well, you're going to be there for a while. So you're going to want something that is easy to transport, lightweight, reliable, and hopefully you can carry enough in a 30-round magazine to get you through a few days in the backcountry. You can bring down a squirrel for dinner, although I can't imagine what would be left of him when you hit him with a military spec round. And if I come across a bear, well, I'm really going to want a bigger gun, but I have what I have. I'm not going to be able to pack a lot of ammunition with me because we're not going hunting. Hopefully this will never happen. But at least I've got 30 rounds in a compact space. The other thing that I saw on YouTube was a fellow who put one in a tennis racket case, which seemed like a pretty good idea. It doesn't have a gun footprint. It's not noticeable by people with a tennis racket. That's not really what I'm after. The foam padding that surrounds the optics and the rest of the gun while it's in this case is pretty good protection against a crash. Now, if I have a survivable crash, hopefully the gun will survive as well. Possibly the optics do not. We have a Burris AR 5.56 scope on here, which is a pretty nice scope, I think. Mainly, one of the attractive features about it is if there are any fingers left that work, I can release it from the Picatinny rail on top, jettison it, and go back to the fixed sight system. So if that scope is damaged, I can get rid of it and still deal with the bear. But anyway, those are my thoughts on this SU-16, and that's the reason I have that in this video instead of an AR-15 or an M4 or something else.